Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Helen is with us on the conference call. Center. I thought Cynthia was going to join us, and maybe a couple of others, but not yet, I guess. The announcement of the fall classes went out this morning, so we can all check on that. And we have finished the first 4 chapters of this book, and there's 8 chapters in it, but the first 4 are the complicated ones, or at least chapters 3 and 4 are the tough ones. So I think we'll maybe be able to do a chapter a week from now on out. In any event, this is the 1st of August, and we have 5 Mondays in August, so we'll finish up this month. And what's going to happen with respect to this work is we're going to, for as long as this group wants to go on or other people want to go on, we'll continue this group beyond the end of the book and maybe go back over and hit topics in more depth, or I don't know what we'll do, but we'll keep going and let this just be an open, ongoing class for as long as it wants to be. We're also going to redo this workshop on Friday nights. So there'll be another version of, another edition of The Pointing at the Moon. The continuation on Monday night will be called Reaching for the Moon now, since we've already pointed at it for a while and our arms are getting tired. So we'll do Reaching at the Moon now. And we're going to redo the book study Pointing at the Moon on Friday nights for people who haven't done it yet and want to join Reaching for the Moon, because we will have moved, well, we already have moved pretty far in 4 weeks, or we've been 6 weeks, but we've already moved pretty far, and I don't think strangers wandering in here will know what we're talking about. So other people can join this group if they get the book and read it first, or if they are doing the Pointing at the Moon workshop in conjunction with this. So we'll see how that works, but we're going to do 2 things, and if you guys want to continue this, it will continue on Monday nights, and it will be called Reaching at the Moon, and we will certainly not meet on Labor Day, but we'll start back up the following week again. And tonight we're doing a chapter called The Human Condition, and it was called More on Mind, because I like the idea of more on mind. I left the E out when I spelled it and put it in one word. Well, that seemed appropriate. Yeah. But the chapter was about twice as thick as it is now, and I kept looking at it, and I didn't like it, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I finally decided what I would do is throw it out. So I threw all that stuff out and just kept the back half, because there is no reason for an in-depth study of mind. You know, it doesn't matter how mind works, it matters that it is, you know, and we already have studied mind pretty deeply in the last chapter, and deeply enough, and what we need to know is what God is and what error is, and mind is just an aspect of it. So I just threw all that out, and this chapter got nice and short, and we'll probably go smoother tonight. So let's see what happens. Let's start our reading.
The human condition. The human condition is dual. We are spiritual beings having human experiences. Spiritual being means an eternal, infinite being whose nature is consciousness, harmony, and perfection, i.e. an impersonal, individual expression of what is. Having a human experience means believing we are these physical body-minds, separate from what is, independent entities experiencing a real world out there through our 5 senses. It means having a level of awareness which is material or mental.
Leelaa is about expanding.
Remember to jump in anytime you want to with questions or comments or whatever. Still a workshop. Go ahead, Sergeant.
The Leelaa is about expanding our awareness of what is beyond the illusion of the human experience to the reality of our spiritual being. We've been having human experiences for millennia. Lifetime after lifetime, we are born into different bodies and minds. We bring with us what Barbara called our karmic bank, which essentially contains our current state of awareness, all the spiritual truths we have mastered, and all the material and mental lies we still believe. It also contains a complete record of all our previous lives.
Our current role in this scene of the Leelaa is determined by how far we have progressed. We select the ideal parents, sex, race, nationality, religion, to facilitate mastering our next spiritual lesson. The Leelaa is really a spiritual university with infinite patience. A lesson, problem, difficulty, is presented to us to master. If we deal with it at the level of the problem, i.e. humanly, by trying to find a way to overcome it, we fail. But no matter, it will be presented again in a different form, perhaps in our next lifetime. If it killed us this time, if we recognize the false belief in our individual consciousness that is permitting this problem to be in our existence, in our experience, and realize the correct spiritual truth relating to the situation, the problem dissolves, and we move up and never have to deal with that problem again.
Yeah.
The previous paragraph, if the karmic bank contains the complete record of all our previous lives, why can't we freely access it? Or can we if we reach a certain level?
We don't typically, because it would be way too much for us to deal with, I suspect. Lots of very high people have had various of their previous lives revealed to them. Joel knew of several of his previous lives, Barbara knew of some of hers, and they have always said that whatever information we need to enhance our ability to deal with this life will be revealed to us. You can also find out specific life, sometimes by doing past life regressions, but all of this is still, just a scratch of it, just a detail or two. It is said that when the Buddha became enlightened, he saw his previous 9,999 lives in full detail, but that may be a metaphor, just possibly. But it's all there. I mean, any particular thing that you need to find, like if we're having experiences of scripts or terrors that we can't explain in this lifetime, if we find we're always afraid of a particular thing, several of us have done past life work and gone back and found the scene where the trauma was, and usually that's a very healing thing to do, because you get to see that you got killed because of whatever it was that happened, and then you get to notice that here you are reliving it, and that takes a lot of the pressure off. And that also is the one way that you can get rid of the fear of death. So, maybe you can go back and find that stuff. Joel said something else that went through my head, but I didn't catch it quick enough. Yeah, we'll come back if it needs to. Yes?
When you say we select the ideal parents, can we do that because we are already enlightened, and when this body dies, there's some time frame where we can select what next lesson we...
Yeah, I really have no experience or no conscious experience of any of that, and no real experience that's conscious to me right now. Barbara explains that we are operating as we rise spiritually, we rise in vibration level, and I'm not sure what it is that vibrates, but we rise in our vibration rise. And I do know that it's true, because I experience, and I have a sense of my vibration level rising. I have had several experiences of that over this lifetime, but she says that it is our lifetime, our vibration rate and the vibration rate of our parents, combined vibration rate of our parents, that determines where we're attracted to come in. And I don't think it's necessarily a conscious act. And we certainly, when we are not wearing a body, we certainly are still not enlightened. That period of time between bodies is also part of the Leelaa and part of this zoo we're in. So But that's the way it works, is that we come into the situation that's correct to learn our next life, to learn our next experience. So in a very real sense, we did determine our parents, and our kids are picking us. Okay?
So I just wanted to run through a couple scenarios of the last sentence that we read about. If we recognize the false belief in our individual consciousness that is permitting this problem, that is permitting this problem to be in our experience, and learn or realize the correct spiritual truth relating to the situation, the problem dissolves. So,
Yeah, the deal is there's something in front of me that's called a problem, okay? It appears to be a problem to me, okay? Now that's a reflection of my level of consciousness. Now I got two ways of going. I can be human and overcome it. You know, call out the cops or do whatever I have to do and overcome the problem and perhaps accomplish something, you know, but what I've done in doing so is I've added data to my karmic bank and I'm going to have to experience the other side of it, and I've made no progress spiritually. I've once again demonstrated that human beings are sometimes successful and sometimes failures at overcoming. The other thing I can do is go within and determine what it is in my consciousness that is allowing me to manifest this problem, okay? And if I discover what that is and realize the spiritual truth, I will rise, the problem will dissolve. I mean, it will not be a problem, it will go away. And I will have risen spiritually and I will not have to do that lesson again. It's a real nice thing, and we have to do it until we learn it, and then we get to move on.
So which of those scenarios does getting sober fit into?
Not necessarily. Either one. It depends on, usually getting sober is an act of grace, and we rise, but whether we stay there or not, whether we got the lesson or whether we got lifted, is a very different question.
Okay. So does the problem dissolve, or was it never a problem to begin with?
Well, it was never a problem to begin with.
Okay.
But it appeared to be one, and it dissolved in the sense that there's no longer a problem there. If you come over the hill on the desert and you see all that water down there on the road, it looks like a problem. And if you park and wait for it to go away, spend the night and come back the next day, there's that water, and you keep getting to do that over and over again. If instead you become enlightened enough to realize that it's just a reflection of the sky off the road because of the heat, then you can drive on. And the appearance of the water is still there, but the problem is not there. Because you know it's not water, you know it's hypnotism. Okay? You've been lifted above it. And from that point on, having once discovered that that's water, you never believe it again, you know. So, that kind of a thing.
once you get to the point where you've seen a problem that you thought was a problem, that was never really there to begin with, dissolve, you get lifted up there spiritually, does that open you up to dissolving problems quickly? Then spiritual growth happens.
It just opens you up to the next problem, and it may be quicker. I mean, you may get. It depends on how consciously you're doing that. You know, you get better at it, sure, but the problems get more difficult too.
Because I even see that, like in doing the script work, I see that there. You know, like you said before, that when you really get to the root of that it'll dissolve and you have to do it.
Yeah, but the problems get harder. Yeah, the problems get harder as you go on. But they get less. But it becomes less difficult to deal with them. You know, that doesn't make sense, but it's true. Yeah, eventually we're going to ask you to do away with yourself. That's a hard one. Okay? But I mean, the one that's doing away with yourself is the one that has to go. So eventually it comes to that, and that's a harder problem.
So in a way, when you hear, we'll say that at a close-up meeting or somebody will say something like, I realize that I am the problem, that in a sense there's knowledge, in a sense the problem is my perception that there is a problem. So
yeah,
that kind of goes in line with it, in a sense. When I hear somebody say, I thought that everything and everyone else was trying to realize I was a problem.
That's right. It was my belief.
Right.
emptying out.
Yeah, it was my belief that was the problem. I believed that I was unable to stop drinking, and I just believed that I needed to drink the alcohol to exist, and I believed that I couldn't quit. Every problem that you ever encounter in your lifetime, every single piece of misery that you have ever experienced in your lifetime is a direct result of what you believe at that moment. It's just that simple. I mean, in that sense, I'm the problem, okay? Every single piece of misery I've ever experienced, I am the sole cause for. Ignorantly, but it is what I believe that makes that possible. That gives us a sense of the scope of how hard the problems can be, right? But it's true. And that also, of course, means that I can be the complete solution since I'm the complete problem. Next paragraph.
We finally arrived at the level at which we are attending school consciously, or we wouldn't be reading this book. We can now actively pursue learning the truths which will permit us to master our next lessons, rather than being driven to discover them through suffering.
Hopefully. That translates as what I like to say in the morning meeting, that the steps of AA work regardless of why you work them. You can work them out of greed for getting free, you can work them out of pain for not working them, but the steps work no matter why you work them. This process is easier if we're actively pursuing truth rather than passively being driven to it, rock by rock.
The nature of mind. The Leelaa takes place in mind. Let's review a few points we've made about consciousness and mind. There's only one consciousness, which we all are expressions of. Individual consciousnesses are not separate, but are one with consciousness and all the other individual consciousnesses, whatever, like that's what you say, of the facets of a diamond to the diamond, and the other facets. Mind is the aspect or
Pause just a second after each one, would you? Make sure people hear it.
So,
I say pause after each bullet just for a second to make sure people hear it. Like I said, and there's only one consciousness, which we're all expressions of. Individual consciousnesses are not separate, but are one with the consciousness, and with all the other individual consciousnesses, like the relationship of the facets of a diamond to the diamond and to the other facets. Okay, this is review, but let's hear these bullets. Okay, go ahead.
Mind is the aspect or function of consciousness which, like a mirror, immediately and precisely reflects forms, the content of the consciousness governing it.
So that's the one that really jumped out for me. Because I was speaking with somebody today, and they were telling me about, it's like, I feel like the way we think about our minds is our minds are creative. Like that they're creating, not that they're like a mirror reflecting consciousness.
That's right, we do.
So that would seem like a huge shift to what this was saying.
Yes. Well, most of us aren't even aware that we have a mind. Most of us think it's happening out there and has no relationship to us, that we're the object of it. We do move up a level to where mind appears to be creative, and that's the mental level of consciousness, where people try to create things with their mind. And but the reality is that what is creative, and what is has created, and what our mind is reflective for us in that it is. The word is a little bit funny there because you could say it created, but what's creating is an image of what is creation, which reflects our level of consciousness and our concepts. Okay, so it's not at all creative. You could say it in another way. You could say that creation, capital C, is real. It exists. It is externalized in mind, in consciousness, as part of what is. Okay, and what individual consciousness, what we see, like cancer and flu and water on the road, is not externalized. It's just in our own personal individual sense, or in when we're group hypnotized in the group hypnosis. But it's not externalized, it's not real in any sense like that. It's as unreal as a dream. When we wake up in the morning, it's real clear that that was a dream and was not externalized, and that's the sense in which I mean it. What we see is not externalized. There are no physical bodies out there. There's not only not a wet road, there's not even a road out there. It's all hypnosis. And none of that's real. That's just concepts of what's real.
So what's real is nothing?
Or everything.
Okay. But
What's real is spiritual.
I think it's what Reverend Michael says lots of times, and maybe it's just part of that teaching. It's already done. I mean, it's just a matter of walking into that. I mean, it's already all there, or not all there. But it's a matter of changing your beliefs and your truth so you can not see, because you don't see. So you can experience or know what's already there. It's already there.
So that you can know more of what's already there.
Right.
It being much more infinite than we are.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
but you gotta stop seeing the images.
Right.
It's sort of like you're outside of your facet looking in, and your facet is reflective right now, okay? Let's suppose that here's this infinite diamond about which there is no outside. But nonetheless, it's like it has a facet, and we're outside the facet looking in, trying to see God, and what we're seeing is a reflection of us because there's so much crap on our facet. Okay, and as we thin that out, we get to see more and more of God, but we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Okay.
I
Just
suppose,
like following that one idea though that my experience is about my consciousness and only that.
That's
and
right.
only reflect that. And that helps me to do what the paragraph before said, which is to address every problem internally. Then they like totally corroborate each other.
Yep. Okay. Next bullet.
There's only one mind which we all participate in.
Okay.
What is this creation in mind is the reflection of what is its consciousness.
And that's the creation with a capital C.
Creation has no relative conditions in it, like good and bad or beautiful and ugly. Mind does not add any conditions while forming the content of consciousness.
Like we did last week on the film in the can and at the movie theater, the film is just a sequence of images, and there's no good or bad or evil or ugly or anything like that, and one person will see it good and another will see it bad and another will see it evil and another will see it whatever, you know. And neither does the projector add any conditions to it, you know. When it's up on the film, when it's up on the screen, there are no conditions on what's on the screen. It's just images on the screen, and then the people who are looking at it get to add the conditions like.
So mind has no concepts.
Mind has no concepts, and mind has no conditions. Mind is just a reflection of what. Mind is just an instrument, just a mirror. The mirror shows a reflection of you when you're looking at it, and the mirror doesn't add pretty or ugly. And there isn't any pretty or ugly in the image. But you're calling it pretty or ugly, depending on how you think you ought to look at it.
So in the three levels of consciousness, mind is distinct throughout.
Mind is just it's the aspect of consciousness that reflects its own content. It's the mirror. Okay?
Mind is not only forming creation, the content of what is consciousness, it's also forming individual creations reflecting the content of the individual consciousnesses and experienced by those individuals.
The spiritual beings are the facets of the diamond, the individual expressions of what is, having the nature of what is, which the Bible refers to as having the image and likeness of God. Human experience is the result of identification with the images in mind
formed by the content of our individual consciousnesses.
Okay. Move on.
The human experience. Humans experience images in mind which have been conditioned by all the human beliefs about duality. We don't experience creation. We experience human concepts of creation. When we see disease, limitation, etc., we are seeing forms reflecting the extent of our association with universal human consciousness. A person struggling with a problem is judging by the appearances formed in mind, not with anything real. That person is hypnotized. We do not live in a material world. We are hypnotized by the human beliefs into experiencing finite bodies and minds, with natures that are sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Believing we're human means we're tuned into a cesspool of human beliefs. We have been conditioned by human beliefs since even before our birth. We started being affected by our mother's beliefs while we were still in the womb. We registered her joys and fears. Our conditioning continued after our birth by everyone who came into our experience. The thought, this taught us...
They taught us, I'm sorry.
They taught us worry by worrying about us, as if we were a baby body. They taught us separation as babies. This is my nose, that is your nose, etc. Every person, every teacher, every book, every television show, every movie, every church sermon, every advertisement continued to affirm that we were separate beings, isolated, independent, and not good enough. We were thoroughly conditioned into this mode of belief before we were able to think. And there are all of other beliefs that humanity holds about self-preservation, which emphasize that there is an individual self to preserve, and that only the fittest survive and again stress our separateness.
Six billion humans are believing and radiating these beliefs into one consciousness. These are the materialistic and mental beliefs that are the current level of the collective human awareness. And they are all based in fear. Universal human belief is a cauldron of fears based on the false belief that we're separate.
Most humans have no idea that all their beliefs are conditioned. Everything humans believe is wrong. And the conditioning is continually being reapplied subliminally, 24/7, 52. It's amazing that anyone ever gets out of it. What we individually experience is a reflection of the extent of our own individual awareness. Each of us sees differently. We see things that are consistent with the human beliefs we resonate with. Images constant with our current conditioning. Judgments, fears. We see how far along the path from ignorance to transcendence we are.
Where's the book?
It's right here, and I was just trying to find
Yeah.
it. I have to find the page again.
57.
Believing we're human means we tuned in to the cesspools. We just did that.
No, we're
Yeah.
Players
Claire's
are
not
conditioned.
Claire's Okay. Next page. There are several components which make up the human condition. We've talked about self, myself, and myself. Self is what is, the diamond. Myself is an impersonal, individual expression of what is, part of what is, a facet of the diamond. Myself is the human experience, my personal sense of self. Notice that there's no corresponding part of the diamond. Myself is not part of what is. It's part of what appears to be hypnosis.
Maybe a second to go through that again.
Okay. Now there's different capitals. There's the self, capital S, which is the diamond. There's myself, capital S, which is the impersonal, individualization of what is, which is to say is the spiritual being. And then there's myself, small s, which is the personal experience that we're having, the human experience, is what I'm saying. And I'm pointing out that we've got the diamond for what is, and we've got the facet for myself, capital S, and we've got nothing left for myself, small s, because there is nothing in what is that corresponds to myself, small s. It's all hypnosis.
Perhaps we can visualize our myself as being outside the diamond. Of course, there really is no outside the diamond. Trying to look into it through our particular facet. Joel talked about a funnel with God as the infinite wide mouth and humans as being the end of the spout. As our realization of God increases, it's as if the spout were getting wider and more of God pours into our lives.
Our parallel has the spout extending from our facet, but otherwise it's the same. Our facet is infinite. The amount we experience of ourselves as human experiences is initially almost zero. Our spouts are completely closed. As we grow in realization, our spouts get wider and shorter, and we can see more of our facets, and through them, what is, until we finally realize that we have always been the facets.
Within human experience, there also appear to be several players. Universal human belief, human consciousness, world mind, carnal mind, is nothing more than all of the beliefs and powers other than what is.
An aspect of it is KUHD, the broadcasting station that is hypnotizing us and subliminally reinforcing its hypnotizing. KUHD, broadcasting universally into each individual human consciousness, causes the images humans see reflected in mind. If we had no thoughts or understandings of our own, we would see exactly what humanity believes.
That would be mass hypnosis. Okay? We're individually hypnotized by what we react to and respond to, but where we don't have particular opinions about something, we get the mass hypnosis, which is what humanity in general believes.
An aspect of KUHB is what Barbara called universal parent. This is the part of the broadcast that uses the words supposed to, ought to, and should. And they're negative, not supposed to, ought not, and shouldn't. It often has a voice that sounds like our mother's or our father's. It can be visualized as shaking a finger at us.
There are also the aspects of ourselves which appear to be listening to Universal Parent, which we sometimes refer to as kids. These are the fearful parts of us that are completely in the illusion, believing the lies about our inadequacies, which result in all our human fear-based behaviors.
Spiritual teacher once told me that there are really just two fundamental lies that humans believe. The first is that we're not all right. The second is that we should do something about that.
Two sources of input to individual consciousness. As we sow, we reap. Human consciousness in its unilluminated state, which is full of materialistic beliefs, conflicting doctrines, opinions, theories, and conditioning, can only manifest chaos. But when we are freed of all these ideas, mind becomes the instrument through which the creative control of life can flow harmoniously and eternally.
There are two sources of input to our individual consciousness today, from mind to form. One source is KVHD. The other is what is, yes. The radio we have built into our humanhood is a two-station receiver. After looking from the factory, it is tuned to KUHB, and it comes with a spring on the dial, keeping it tuned that way. We eventually discovered that there is a WHTS station on it as well, and that we can dial over to it. But the minute we let go, the spring snaps us back to KUHB. The process of learning the letter of truth and meditating wakens the spring. Of course, we could turn the radio off. If we stop hearing KUHB, stop receiving all the conditioned beliefs, our minds become unconditioned because it's KUHB that was conditioning us.
That's the short answer.
Is there a time limit?
Just turn the radio off.
If we rise above human belief, we're no longer conditioned. And when we're unconditioned, we see the unconditioned creation that has always been expressed in that unconditioned mind. Actually, we won't see that creation because it's incorporeal. We'll continue to see images that are consistent with our five senses. But these images will reflect the nature of what is, rather than the nature of the erroneous beliefs floating around in human consciousness. It is this sense that mind should be used as a tool of awareness. As a tool of awareness. If we are conditioned, it reflects our condition, and we can see the work we still have to do. If we can uncondition our individual consciousness, then it becomes an instrument of awareness of what is, manifested for our five senses. Five-sense concept, mortality, harmony, and perfection, rather than of lack and limitation.
So you get it, this is the living between two worlds. I mean, we are to some extent tuned into, we're at this level, we're to some extent tuned into God consciousness. And to the extent that we're tuned into God consciousness, we have an experience of harmony and perfection. And to the extent that we are still tuned into universal human beliefs, still conditioned, still believing the lies in universal beliefs, and we're seeing having an experience of chaos. It depends on where we're listening. Yeah.
Okay, so there's really nothing out there, but I still see it because that's where I still am. Let's see.
But there really is something.
Okay, because I wanted to ask.
You're seeing a five-sense version of it. You're seeing the concept.
What are someone like Robert see?
Robert, the body, Robert that we saw sees what we see.
Okay.
Sees exactly what we see. But he always knows that it's hypnosis.
And Joel did too.
He always knows, yeah. It's like he comes to the top of the desert and he looks down there and there's a road with water on it. And he sees the water too, but he knows it's not water. He knows it's heat reflecting the sky off the asphalt, It's just our mind that says water because our mind doesn't think that asphalt can reflect sky. That's the only problem is our mind does not believe that asphalt can reflect sky. So it says, it must be water. There must be water on there to do that reflection.
And so we don't believe that, and then the next thing, but he didn't have any of those things.
He didn't have any of that stuff.
No road, no water, no...
He used to say, if I didn't see what you say, so I couldn't operate.
Okay, got it.
We're in this play, we're in this act. And the body that we wear is the tool that we wear to be in this act. But we don't have to believe what we're seeing, we don't have to buy the judgments. We can discern, is Joel's word, we can see what really is, discern what really is, know the truth about it.
Okay. And of course, sit back and watch the play.
You can sit back and watch the play. And people have experiences that are much higher, where they actually see beings as light beings and things like that. That's not that uncommon. We can, as we rise higher, see things with other faculties than our five senses, although it will still seem to us as if we were seeing with our five senses. But just like we can feel the presence of God. Here it is. But, we certainly can't feel it with any one of our physical senses because there's nothing to feel, nothing physical to feel. Nonetheless, it needs to be, the only way we can think of it is in terms of our senses because that's part of our conditioning, okay? But, I know many people who have had experiences of seeing the light, seeing nothing but light, and I know many people who have had the experience of seeing beings as lights of all different colors, particles of light, and I guess vibrating, very colorful particles of light and light and all that. So there's all sorts of different ways of seeing it than the five sense way that we see it. It's just the limitation in our belief that forces us to continue seeing the five senses. So Robert may well have seen lots of different stuff when he wasn't trying to get lunch. But when you get lunch, when you wanted to get lunch, you'd better be able to find a refrigerator, right? Yeah. Not a ball of light somewhere.
The last thing you read was about lack, right?
Yeah.
That Jay just read.
About lack?
Didn't it say that?
It said that you experience harmony rather than lack of the
Right, so it had to do with lack. Is lack kind of like, I go look at my refrigerator and I go, Mom, there's no food, and then she comes and makes a stew. So I'm just seeing that there's nothing, which is false because there's actually the ingredients to make a stew.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like that's what you talk about, like the spiritual gymnasium. Like I walk around all day, and I talk to one person and they tell me about how they're sick and they have this and this and this. And I know that that's hypnosis. And then somebody else tells me, oh, this girl was killed and blah, blah, blah. And I say, oh, that's hypnosis. And then somebody else tells me about their marital problems, and somebody else tells me about their eating disorder, and somebody else, And I'm just sitting there knowing all the time that there's no lack and no limitation and no humanhood.
And nobody was ever sick and nobody ever dies. And that's where Robert functioned from all the time. The amazing thing about Robert was that he never was tempted to believe that he had a body. That's why the question about how come he had Parkinson's is such a silly question, because he didn't. He didn't even have a body. He wasn't a body. He knew he wasn't a body. Nobody had a body.
Wasn't he married and had kids?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that I think it's a beautiful sentence. I mean, if you read it, it's really got everything in it. And the big thing for me is if we can uncondition our individual consciousness, then it becomes an instrument. We become an instrument, of awareness of what is. And we can manifest immortality, harmony, and perfection rather than lack and limitation. I think that's beautiful. I can meditate on that for a while.
Good. That wouldn't be a mistake.
So that's like emptying our cup, unconditioning our...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, turning off the radio, stop believing this stuff, recognizing it, knowing that it's hypnosis, knowing that... And that's why we've been doing this stuff and getting this background about error can't exist. We essentially went through an exercise that amounts to proving that error doesn't exist, although none of us, we all read the presentation sequentially and said, yeah, but none of us bought it. We don't believe it, but nonetheless, there it is, and to the extent that we, as we more and more come to see any appearance of error or disharmony as hypnosis, not to mention appearances of health and harmony, but specifically if we recognize error and disharmony as hypnosis, we're rising above it.
But we could still have a cold, but not have a cold. Our body has a cold, but we don't have a cold.
You can have that state of consciousness, which was Robert's, or you could just not have the cold. If you were absolutely aware of the fact that germs don't have power to cause disease, then you would never have a cold. You know, and we mentioned earlier, you know, that there were 30,000 Christian Science churches, you know, and they all had practitioners, and all these practitioners went forever into hospitals and wards full of people that were full of all sorts of diseases, you know. They were going places to heal diseases, you know, and they were walking into flu wards and polio wards, and, you know, they went to all these places, and nobody ever got sick going to where the people were sick to heal them, okay? So you don't have to get sick.
And it's not like switch off or switch on. It's not all or nothing. I know when I started this work, I progressively, year after year, got less and less colds because of less and less worrying about getting sick.
And if you get to the point where you just recognize the whole thought is nonsense,
Even when I start feeling a little something, I just don't pay it any mind, and more times than not, it just doesn't manifest.
right? Right.
But Robert had the appearance of Parkinson's, but he wasn't caught in the illusion that he was Parkinson's.
No, we had the appearance of Parkinson's. Robert didn't have it at all. That wasn't Robert. Robert knew he was the infinite being. He knew he was the infinite consciousness. We saw Parkinson's. He looked me dead in the eye and said, that body is no more mine than this one. This body is no more mine than that one. You know, he looked at me and pointed at his body and said, this body is no more mine than that one, and pointed at mine, you know, and there was no question that he was speaking his truth. No, Robert did not have Parkinson's. Robert was infinite spirit. And he always knew that. Just like you right now are infinite spirit, but you never know it. You think you're the body, and therefore you could have Parkinson's, you know.
I have a question about that, because when I asked the question in one of the early classes about Christ and the crippled guy, I can't remember, that Christ healed him, and he stood up and walked, and I said, well, why didn't the people still see him as crippled? And the answer was, well, his truth became theirs. So why was that not the case for Robert? If his truth was that he didn't have it, why was he still perceived as having it?
Robert's truth wasn't that he didn't have Parkinson's disease. Robert's truth was he didn't even have a body.
So why did anyone ever see him?
Well,
I'm serious.
No, I hear the question. Of course, he didn't completely not have a body. I mean, it was a vehicle that was being used to do whatever he was doing here. But he was totally unconcerned about it and never really thought of it as being him. It was something he used. I guess he was happy to drive a junker car instead of a Cadillac.
But what's different in these two situations? What's the difference between Robert and the man who's crippled then? That makes us see the crippled man walk.
The man who's crippled thinks he has a body and has aligned his consciousness to that extent with Jesus, and therefore can be lifted to where he's seeing a healthy body instead of a sick body, which is what is the level we've been talking about. We haven't been talking about the Robert level at all, and we've been talking about the level where Jesus walked up to the guy and took his radio receiver and turned it from KUHB to WHTS. And the guy said, oh yeah, and he got up and walked. Okay?
And everybody witnessing it had their level rise as well.
Well, because he pretty much is determining what his body looks like. You know,
you never knew what happened a week later after Jesus was gone.
We pretty much all see what you think of your body.
Isn't that the case of a lot of mystics? A lot of mystics have a hard time dealing with the metaphysics of the three dimensions.
Well, I don't know if they say they have a hard time or not. Joel did point out that along with enlightenment, very seldom comes a healing consciousness. And, most people that have mystical experiences and get very high and very clear don't have healing consciousness. And the fact is that for them it's irrelevant.
There's nothing to heal.
Yeah, it's totally irrelevant whether they have a healing consciousness or not. It's not something to worry about.
Well, Linda Sargatata smokes cigarettes, and they asked him, why do you smoke cigarettes? And he goes, I don't. I love that.
And when they asked him, are you in pain? He said, no, but there is pain. An eye-opening statement. No, I'm not in pain, but there is pain. dying of cancer. Yeah, very, very, very few really high people have been healers. Joel was a healer, Jesus was a healer, Buddha was a healer. Not many others have had a significant healing ministry.
And yet, what was the statement Joel made when somebody asked if you're this healer, why do you still wear glasses? What was his?
Because he wasn't willing to take the month off to do the necessary work to cure his glasses and not heal 135 other people every day that he was off doing his meditating. Too much work. He didn't care.
Too easy to wear glasses.
Yeah. Plus, I think he rather enjoyed
The look?
yeah.
Slave to fashion.
Plus, not enjoyed the look of wearing glasses.
Right.
Enjoyed wearing glasses and bugging the Christian Scientists who thought that was a indication that he was an achievement of spiritual level.
Goodness, I could do that, don't they?
So one of the unconditionings that I've been really working on is unconditioning myself in terms of parenting. Because there's so much conditioning about what your responsibilities are and that you have to be afraid for your kids and protect them and mold their lives and all this crap. And it makes, my friend said to me, if people watched us with our kids, they would think we were very neglectful. Because we don't parent the same way because we're not afraid. And that's obviously that's my assignment, is working on. And the other thing she said is that, you know, I'm no more responsible for my children than I am for you. Which is the same thing Robert was saying about, you know, I'm no more that body than this body. That's just part of the conditioning, you know, that I'm supposed to. A big assignment.
One thing I found interesting about the man where Jesus said, pick up your mat and walk, it only talks about within twice in the New Testament. Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is within you, and then there's the bleeding lady that goes within herself and then touches his robe. And then he goes, who touches me? Who touches me? But her healing was not from the touching, but going from within and realizing that there's a healing possibility.
Who he was, yeah.
Yeah, so the awareness.
Recognizing him.
It's kind of like two completely different, the context is different from what, the same as Robert having Parkinson's and the healing of the man in the, with the mat. There's two different contexts, but it's still, it's different, but it's the same. I don't know what I'm saying, but it's just weird what Megan, the topic Megan brought up, because it throws this whole thing in a loop. My whole understanding of playing to the moon.
Well, maybe come back Friday night. Yeah, I don't see a loop.
So there's only, so Robert was just pure perfection, and I'm pure perfection, and everyone's pure perfection. And our false belief is that he got Parkinson's. Because he didn't exist and we think he did.
And he saw the Parkinson's too.
I'm saying that the perception, the false belief is our human consciousness seems his human body is where the false.
Robert always used to say, who sees the Parkinson's disease?
Right.
The one who sees the Parkinson's disease is the one who is locked into this dream, is the false one, the myself, the one that doesn't exist, the one that has five senses that doesn't even exist. Do you see that there can't be Parkinson's, okay? We're talking about who sees Parkinson's and did he have it or not and why didn't he heal himself, but there was no Parkinson's. There can't be Parkinson's. It never existed. It's impossible. And the only one that can see stuff like Parkinson's is a hypnotized person who believes he's wearing a body that operates in five senses.
So, as far as the things we are conditioned to call good, like Joel was a healer, Does that have the same reality in it as saying Robert had Parkinson's?
Absolutely.
So when the person,
Nonsense is the appropriate response to both.
when the Christian scientist said for Joel to heal himself in classes, that was just their false.
That was just a judgment. That was just a good
Right, but it was
judgment.
still a.
Let's do the last page, and then we can wander on as long as we want. Some of us have, some want to move on, so we've only got 2 more sections here, so let's go on.
Rising to spiritual consciousness. So that's the goal in this work. That's what this human experience is all about. The script for the Leelaa is about rising to spiritual consciousness. What's happening is not that we're suddenly rising to spiritual consciousness. We've been doing that since we were an amoeba. But we are now consciously aware that we are rising to spiritual consciousness.
Becoming aware of how it all works is the first big step towards attaining spiritual consciousness. As long as we were totally ignorant, we floundered, but now we can grow spiritually by practicing methods that work rather than by eliminating everything that doesn't work.
Go within. Our real selves will guide us towards this transcendental consciousness. See to it that we find the right teacher, the right teaching, the right book, etc. When we learn to go within.
Forget the W.
Okay. And we can learn to check if something is true. Ourselves will tell us. Barbara called this faculty our radar for truth. If we go within and ask our radar for truth, it'll tell us whether something is true or not. We will always know when we have learned to listen, whether we're hearing truth or not. We need to use this faculty when we're considering these finger-pointing words, to listen to them until we hear them, and go within to see if they're true for us individually.
There's an amazing amount of conditioning contrary to these truths, but it is a consistent truth that has been taught by every mystic and spiritual leader for the past 4,000 years. They're all seeing something, they're all saying the same thing, whatever it is. And that which is at the center of you is the spiritual being you really are, already as this.
Yeah. Okay, now we can, good deal. We got through the chapter and we can talk as long as you want. And people that need to get some work can speak up. Questions, comments?
Yeah, you know that part about going within and hearing that voice now. Can there be that? There's sometimes one confuses that voice. Maybe I'm not getting quiet long enough, but can the conditioning you had over the years and years and years and years give you that confusion? If you're not sure what you're hearing is truth or whether what you're hearing is what you can hold as truth.
Yeah, take practice to know the difference. If you don't know, if you're going within to find out the truth about something or to learn something, and you get an answer, and you don't know whether that was a still small voice or not, it wasn't.
Okay.
Okay? The still small voice speaks with authority. You know. And it needn't be a voice and it needn't be words. It's just, I don't get words. I don't go within and God says, that's true. And I don't get that at all. But I know when somebody's speaking truth, and I know when people are speaking truth and have experienced it, and I know when people are speaking the truth but are speaking it intellectually, for example. And I know when people don't know the truth. I just know that, and there's no question in my mind, and there can be 10,000 people saying, no, that's nonsense, and I absolutely know it's true. There's just no question about it, okay? I have the Same problem I know when somebody's enlightened. I just glance at them and know it. And therefore I know when they aren't. Even though they think they are and are elevated to gurudom. You know, I know where they are. And there's no question about that. And it needs to be words that you just know and you just listen, just get quiet. And for now, go within and see if it feels right. Let's not use high power words like know the truth. Go within and see if it feels right, see if it resonates, you know, because if it's resonating, you know, without a bunch of chatter and dialogue, then if it's resonating, then it's probably true. And if your mind mentions both sides of the argument, you know it's all mind.
I think that's what I get occasionally.
Yeah, that's definitely mine. Yeah, there's never any but. It's so clear. I read the first Rajneesh book that I ever saw. I read the first 10 pages of the Rajneesh book. And I recognized that it was truth, okay? And I recognized that he was an enlightened master. And I recognized that he was my guru. And at the time, I thought, I intellectually believed that gurus were a bunch of bullshit. I didn't believe in gurus. But I absolutely recognized him as my guru. You know, so that's that level of surety that there is. There's no question about it. But you can get a sense, all of us have enough of a meditation practice that we can have a sense for what's true and what's bullshit.
Do you remember when you said 99% of what the truth is once I say it, I lose 99%, and once you hear it, 99% of that is lost?
Yeah, that was Rajneesh said that. But he's talking about when he goes into satori, when he goes into the samadhi and is in the actual mystical experience. Then when he comes back from that and decides to talk about that, he loses 99% of it just in trying to put it into words. And he points out that of that 1%, 99% of that is lost when he chooses particular words. And of that 1%, 99% of that is lost when you hear it because you use the words differently. But the point is that he's not trying to convey intellectual knowledge to you. What he's trying to do is light a fire, light a spark in you that will expand to where you have that experience too, which is the only way you'll ever know what that experience is to have it. So, I mean, you know, he's talking about expressing something that's inexpressible. Well, let's get quiet then. New chapter next week. Okay, thanks for coming. Love you all.
Thank you.